I have a vague recollection of having met him, but
Phil was the clerk for the 43 and 44 term.
yes, and I was 5 years later than that.
Then Murray Gardner,
Yes,
and he was 40, let's see, 45 and 46.
yeah,
And then Jim Marsh,
yeah.
who was in 47 and 48.
I don't recall him.
And then you. And
Yeah.
you, were you first of all, you destined to be a lawyer? Is lawyers in your family?
Well, no, but I have a son who's he had two of them. One was a judge,
Right.
and he's the one who died a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, at 53 or 54 years of age. It's just shame. And then I have another one who's not practicing law now. He's just he's kind of semi-retired. He moved down to Tennessee, and but I had no forebears who were lawyers.
Right. Did you went to college with the Williams?
I went to Williams, yes.
And when did you graduate?
39 class.
39?
Class of 39, yes.
Where were you raised? What's hometown?
Home, Albany,
Albany?
yes. And I think this was it's still in the Depression when I went there, and anyway, but I went to Williams because my father's business went to pieces in 1934 after being hit very hard in 1932 and 3,
Right.
and and it just went all to pieces. His business went bankrupt.
What kind of business was it?
He had an automobile dealership, and I sold cars at the age of when I was still at Williams, and in the summertime, from June until September, and I sold first used cars. That I also sold some new cars.
What
Right?
kind of dealership was it?
He had a Ford dealership.
Ford dealership?
Yes.
So then you went to Williams, and then from there you graduated from Williams and went to what law school?
I went. Well, I didn't go to anywhere law school then. I graduated from Williams from 1939, and I went to New York and worked for a little while until I got drafted. And I got drafted and went into the Army in 1941. But I had worked down in New York for W.R. Grayson Company. But then I came back to Albany. I was going to get drafted. I came back that spring and sold cars for a while for another dealer. And then I got drafted. I was one of the early draftees, and I was drafted in the August of 41. And I stayed until almost 6 years. I got out. I got off of active duty at the end of 1944, but I still stayed on the rolls until spring of the next year, and and then I went to law school, and I was class of 49 there. Law school was condensed. They had summer session for to make up for a while. So, but I always had a good academic record. I was proud of it. I was junior Phi Beta at Williams, and I was valedictorian of my class at law school, and that type of thing. And that's how I got to get to Jackson.
How did that work?
Well, I didn't know anything about it. My dean of my law school called us, and they had never said anyone that. He just told me that somebody wanted to recommend him. Jackson said, "Set him down." Jackson was the kind of guy who's, unlike Frankfurter, took people from whoever was recommended at Harvard, and so on. And some of them had connections with certain law schools and would take them. But Jackson liked to interview, and I went down and saw him in the spring of '49, and in early spring, and then went home, and about 3 weeks later, I had an invitation to be his law clerk.
During the course of the interview, do you recall what he even asked you? What was his answer?
I don't recall anything that he asked me. I just remember he was fine, and he was a good. He was pleasant and good.
You walked into the chambers for the first time, and you met his secretary, Elsie Douglas.
Yes, of course.
You could describe her. What kind of did she sort of control the secretarial environment there?
Well, it's not outside of our chambers.
Right.
They were all separate. You see, but no, she was good, and she was fine, and I liked her very much. And
did you have much interaction with her during the?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you have much interaction with her?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, saw her every day, and she didn't do it. She didn't get into the legal end of it, but she came over to my office, and the offices are set up in such a way that you have from your side, the judge's chambers are here, the center office was here, and the clerk's chamber, our room, was over here on this side. And so Elsie was in the center.
The gatekeeper.
Yeah.
This was when you were there for that, this would be the 1949 term?
Yes.
You were also there with another clerk.
Yes. And Cole, and he, I think he died. And I don't know much about that or when or how, but I do remember, our working together at that time.
Now this was the first time, I believe, that Justice Jackson had two clerks.
I think so, yes.
Did he ever explain why that was?
It was just that everybody had two clerks, and he kind of caved in, I guess. But it worked out well.
Do you recall much about Alan Cole?
Not a great deal. I knew him, and he got to know Jackson because of it was related to the European experience somehow, and I don't recall those details at all. But he had served over there and maybe been over there at Nuremberg. I just don't recall.
Did Justice Jackson talk about Nuremberg at all?
Not much, no.
Yeah. This was fairly current. I mean, when you joined him right after Nuremberg, a couple of years it only lasted.
Yeah.
Was there a division of labor in the court between you and Alan Cole?
Not necessarily. We got the jobs of the clerks were to read and review and give then notes concerning petitions for certiorari and appeals. Mm-hmm. And most of them were petitions for certiorari, and we handed to the judges. All 9 judges' offices did the same thing. We handed cert notes to them, certiorari notes, but cert notes they were called. And I can remember one time, well, I didn't give him a cert note. This was getting into the spring, and we're getting down to the end of the term, and he had given me it was very rare for him. He'd give me the first draft of an opinion, and to do it. And by gosh, he didn't change a thing in it. But I studied to make it in his, to make it in his phraseology, and I did that. But then thereafter, or shortly thereafter, well, as a matter of fact, I guess I just finished it up something. I had to go to them. They had their sessions on Saturday mornings, and you turn in your cert notes on Fridays at the latest. But and I had to go to them on a Friday around noontime or a little early afternoon, I think it was. And I said, I've been working on this opinion, and I don't have any cert notes for you now, and but I can arrange to get them from another clerk whose name I gave him. And he said, well, he said, now well, let me take a look. So he took we had a movable wagon, a cart that was on wheels, and the cert notes were all in those. And he said, let me take a look at them. So he took them from my office. This was 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and and he wheeled it back across the L.C. Douglas's domain into his chamber, and then in the afternoon, I saw him. This all happened in the afternoon, but he had him about 2 hours, and I went in and I said, I know you haven't had a chance to review all these cert petitions, but I can arrange to get cert notes from a friend of mine, another clerk. He said, well, let me see. He said, sit down. And he got out the docket, and he read, Jones against Smith and so on, just docket names. He said that, he would review it, and he said, I didn't think that would qualify for certiorari, and that he'd review the next one. Yes, that did. He'd summarize each one of them. He had them for an hour and a half. And it was just an extraordinary demonstration. He just floored me with that.
Oh gosh.
But he was very human.
Do you remember the case that you wrote out? Remember the
Yeah, Mullane against the Central. I remember that. That's the only case practically I remember. But Mullane against the Central Hanover.
Yeah.
But he was very humane and a human person, and I had 2 children, 3 and 5 boys, and they came down to a couple times to the Supreme Court. They liked to run around. They ran around his office, ran all over, and he loved them. He was very, very fond of them.
Probably remembered their birthdays and everything.
I don't think I don't know that I even told them their birthdays, but he was, and he liked to have them. He didn't mind them running around.
What was his temperament like with the other justices? I have read a lot about the relationship with Felix Frankfurter, his relationship or lack of relationship with William Douglas. Did you see much?
You're right. You're absolutely right. Felix his office was was next to ours, but was in the corner office, and they had great respect for each other, each of them. He had, he didn't get along at all. It started, I think, when he's overseas too, because there was a complaint that complaints were being fed back from, but he didn't get along well with Douglas, but he had respect for him, and that's about all.
How about Justice Black?
Well, Black and Frankfurter were the ones that Jackson really respected, and they are both of them. And so that's all.
So there.
Douglas wasn't there a good deal of the term.
Oh, is that right?
Something held him up out in California from, and his clerk just he would be in constant touch with him, but he wasn't there till about February, I think. I'm not sure the date, but about then that he came in.
Did you have reason to go in and listen to oral arguments?
Oh, well, we could if you wanted to, but you didn't have time. I would hear some of them, but not very many, not at all.
Does anything stand out as far as when you saw some of the judges on the court and during those oral arguments, more active judges? Was Justice Jackson a very active judge from the...
No more than the others.
Right.
They would all ask questions.
Right. Then afterwards, just procedurally, they'd hear the oral arguments, then they would go into conference?
Their conference was Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
And you'd hear court was in session during the week, you see.
Then afterwards, after the conferences, did he then bring you and Alan Cole together and talk about it?
No.
You sense that he wrote most of his opinions, didn't he himself?
Well, no, it was his habit was he'd do a first draft, and then he'd send it into the clerk, and my job was to make any changes and suggestions that I had, and so on, and give them back to him. And I remember one was it was a case out of Arkansas. I made a lot of changes in that one, but other than that, and he took them. But other than that, not many.
There was a case that came down in 1949, so I don't know if you were there or not, called Terminello versus Chicago.
Yes, yeah.
Was that your case?
No, we didn't have it, but Terminello was. Who did it? I could go upstairs and get a book, but
Just going to say, I think Terminello. Jackson wrote it, but it was dated 1949. But I don't know. It may have been.
Yeah, he did. It was one of his first cases.
Right.
It came out in when, August or October or November.
See, that's what I don't know.
That was good. That was a. Let me see. Terminello was he a priest from Chicago?
Right. It's a Chicago, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And just looking at this is a book put out by Eugene Gerhardt in 1961 on Justice Jackson.
Uh-huh.
And it has some of his decisions, some of his...
I have all of his decisions upstairs. He gave me a at the end of the term a book with all of his opinions in there. His opinions, that is, his dissents, and so on.
Just during that term, or for?
For that term, yes.
My golly. United States versus women's sportswear. Were you involved in that one?
I don't recall that.
There was one dealing with the communists, Dennis
Pardon?
versus the United States.
Pardon?
This dealt with the communists. The name of the case was Dennis versus the United States.
I don't recall that. What term was that?
Again, the date is 1950, so I don't know if it was
That would be the next term.
maybe the next term.
The terms begin, and they're numbered by, they begin in October, in September or October.
Okay, so when we see it's
The 49 terms, for instance, would start in September and 1949.
that's
And-
okay. Did the integration cases start when you were there? The first Brown versus Board cases, did they come up to? I know the arguments started to hit the court around 1949, 1950.
I think they were a little after that, yes.
One of the things we're having at the Jackson Center is the two Brown daughters
Oh, yes?
are coming next April
Yeah.
on the 50th anniversary. And of course, Justice Jackson was on the court for that.
You have to remember that you're asking me to recall something from 53 years ago.
Boy. I can't remember what I did yesterday, so God bless you. It's terrific. Did you find that Justice Jackson, did he have a political nature in him? Did he comment at all to you guys about what was going on in Washington and President Truman? And
No, he didn't. No, he did not.
did you guys socialize at all? Did he invite you and your wife over to the house?
No, he did not go out to his house. He was out of town in Maryland,
Right.
but no, he did not.
Did you have much interaction with the other clerks? Did you guys meet regularly?
No, we didn't. We had a couple times. I would know some of them, and we'd go and play bridge or have an evening together, something of that nature.
Always curious about whether you guys, among the clerks, talked about the cases at all.
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah. Did you have, when you started with Justice Jackson, did he give you a little course on how to act like a law clerk?
No.
You just dove right in?
Yes.
You didn't have any tutor or mentor or?
No, none.
Did he talk about his Albany Law School days with you?
No, he didn't go to Albany Law School.
That's right. He didn't graduate. He just went there 1 year. I guess once you 1 year.
For a short period of time, yes.
Yeah. I think that's great that he interviewed you and of course relied on the recommendation of was it your dean?
Yes.
Yeah. As you look back on your year with Justice Jackson, what lesson did you learn from that year with him and on the court? Is there, to you, sort of a Robert Jackson legacy here?
I don't think so. I don't recall anything specific that I learned.
You went back a few years ago now, maybe 10 or more. They had a reunion of.
Yes, that was a little longer ago than that, but yes, we had a clerks reunion.
Who orchestrated that?
And that was I don't know who spearheaded it. I think I have some notes on it, but I don't recall who spearheaded it. But we had and it was just Jackson clerks,
Mm-hmm.
and their wives and so on. And I could recall. And you didn't sit with your wife. You sat. I was across the table, And my wife was next to Bill Rehnquist, and who's gone on to better things.
As you, among the clerks, did you guys talk about Chief Justice Rehnquist and kind of whether or not his jurisprudence is similar to your boss?
No, I never talked to the clerks after Rehnquist became Chief Justice. This get-together that you mentioned before was, Rehnquist was there, but he was. We didn't talk about any of that. No.
Right. What did you talk about?
That's nothing special, just different, types of people, just normal conversations.
Right.
Could you excuse me just a minute?
Absolutely.
5. You see, so that means they started out a couple months, 2 or 3 months before that. They oh. Yeah, this will tell you when we had our clerks meeting. Because
Barrett Pretty. Well, Barrett Prettyman's going to be in that October event.
see, the reason I took a little time getting, he said, here's the billing, and he forgot to enclose it.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that neat?
That's from Barrett Prettyman. Yeah. That was in '86.
Some George Niebank, I bet.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you know him?
Yes. This was a clerk. Oh. This was a clerk's dinner in 1951. He just said he'd be happy I could come. Yeah.
Now, how did you know George Niebank?
I don't recall, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, that's George orchestrated that. Well, he's coming too. So I'll remind him of him being quite an entrepreneur here.
Yeah. So anyway, these are all my notes going from those days, and what book did you?
This is Gerhardt, Eugene Gerhardt.
Because I did some notes for Chernick, apparently, and
Oh, may I take a look at this?
sure.
This is the book that Mr. Gerhardt put together, 1961.
Yeah. I should have brought down, but I have a big photograph of Justice Jackson that he gave me, It's that big upstairs, but that's on my wall.
Wow. So this is a paper that this Gregory Chernak did.
This is old stuff.
Isn't that interesting? Did he ask you to comment on it? Are these yours changes?
That would be my writing that, but you go through something and you automatically make a change if it's wrong.
Right.
It says Howard K. Buschmann, Murray Gardner, Jim Marsh, and so on. This was, this was a and he sent a proof around and
Right.
asked for comments.
No, this
Here's the type of change I make.
good for you.
Oh, sure. It's filled with those things all the way through.
Could I borrow this and make photocopy of this?
Yeah, if you want. I'm sorry.
Because I'd love, that'd be great to,
This needs, I wanted to eliminate that.
right, right.
Strike it out. Yeah, this is, yeah, sure, if you want.
Yeah, and I'll mail,
I don't
I'll mail
know
it right
if
back.
it'd be any good for you.
Well, sure, oh, well, somebody spent some time researching, and any research is always helpful.
Yeah.
Then I'll make sure we get this mailed back to you. A little light reading.
Yeah.
And as you look down this list of opinions, do any of these kind of jump out that you remember? Other
You
than
said-
coal.
Well, yeah. Johnson v. Mullane, I remember that one. I wrote it. Some of his greatest writing was in a concurrence.
Was his reputation when you were a clerk there, did he have a reputation then as he does now of being a great writer?
Yes, yeah, he was, yes. And yes, he was known for his fluency with the language. One of his best thing that he ever did was a concurrence. As he wrote it, concurring and dissenting, each in part. That was C.I.O.V. Dowd's. That was a very there's a lot of things in here. In that.
Recall what that case was about?
Yeah, it was it had to do with the communists and the I would hate to volunteer to lend you this book. It's the only one that I have.
Oh, no, you should hang on to that. But he put an inscription in that book there. What did he write to you?
To Howard C. Buschmann Jr. in memory of a happy year's work together. That's all.
And was it a happy year for you?
Yes.
Did you find that as you were applying for other jobs as you left the court, from there you went to Millbank?
Yeah.
Was that,
Go ahead.
you were there at Millbank for how many years?
I was at Millbank Queen for about a year and a half, or 2 years, but I think it was about 2 years, and then I went with, it was about 2 years, and then I went to a client of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that became Amex Corporation, and it's a large, very large company. We had 60 plants in various countries throughout the world.
Now, that was formerly American Brake Shoe?
Yes.
Yeah.
And but then it was a consolidation of that and other companies.
Right. Then you were with them for a long time until you retired, right?
No, yes, yes, I was until I retired, but that was in the early '80s. So that's a long time ago. It was '82, I think it was. So
what's Howard Buschmann's hobby?
nothing special.
Yeah. Do you follow the court at all, or is that kind of a bygone period?
I follow it a little bit, but not intensively at all. The only way I follow it is through the New York Times.
Right.
I get that, of course, but I don't follow it closely. I don't read the opinions or do anything of that nature.
Professor Barrett, John Barrett, who came over here to talk to you.
Yes.
And he's very much involved with us that we're at the Jackson Center and is a professor at St. John's. Just had a manuscript that Robert Jackson wrote in the early 50s on Jackson's recollections of Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, I don't know that.
Jackson, and it's just been published by the Oxford Press. So it's just coming out this month, and it's received rave reviews from the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal just yesterday, in fact. And I assume the New York Times will do a book review soon. But it's Jackson's work.
Yes. Oh.
And it never got published. It was, when he died, Elsie Douglas put it all together and gave it to Bill Jackson.
Oh, really?
And Bill Jackson, in turn, now he was at Millbank, wasn't he?
Yes. Is Bill Jackson still alive?
No, he passed away.
I thought he had died.
Yeah, 1999.
It's pretty young.
Okay. But anyways, Bill Jackson was going to finish it or publish it, but never did. Then he died, and then Professor Barrett, who was working on Justice Jackson, got the manuscript, put it all together, published it with a lot of footnotes, and now it's become a well-read, well-respected book. Just again, you'll have to get it.
Yes.
I love your house here. This is terrific.
Yes, well, we like it. We have room for our dogs. We have 6 acres here, and some of it's fenced in out back. I'll take you out to the deck a little later, and you can see.
Yeah.
And some of it's not fenced in.
As you reflect back on that 1 year, then after the term was over, did they have any parties for the clerks? Do you remember?
No, we had a reunion thereafter, the clerks' reunion. No.
So at the end of the term, you kind of wished everybody well, and
yeah, he invited me to come for another term, but I told him, I said I would like to very much, but I'm how old? 30. I was in my 30s, and I had lost a lot of time during the war and the period immediately after the war. So I didn't go to law school right out of college, and I'm way behind. I have to catch up.
And you had 2 children.
I had 2 boys then, yes.
Do you remember what your salary was as a clerk?
I have a vague recollection that it was about $6,000, which was high for just getting out of law school.
Right. And certainly a good calling card for the next job.
Yes.
Yeah. And the case that you remember the most during that term would have been your case.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that and I remember you have to look through and read the language of CIOB Dowds. It's pretty good.
In fact, I think in this book here, Mr. Gerhardt's book, may have mentioned a couple of those. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Now, was during your term, was that Terminello? Was that in your term?
Yes, yes.
And that's the one where...
Early in the year.
That's the one where they talk about the suicide pact. You see that frequently quoted, that this court has gone far towards accepting the doctrine that civil liberty means the removal of all restraints from these crowds, and that all local attempts to maintain order are impairment of liberty of the citizen. The choice is not between order and liberty. It is between liberty with order and anarchy without either. There is a danger that if the court does not temper its doctrinaire logic with a little practical wisdom, it will convert the Constitutional Bill of Rights into a suicide pact. Periodically, you'll see that. Here's American Communications versus Dowds.
Yes, that's the title.
Yep.
But it's American Communications Association, CIO et al.
Right.
And it's referred to as CIOB Dowds.
It dealt with censorship.
Yes. I was looking for something that I quoted that I was particularly fond of, was something he said. But
here's a quote from that case. This might be it.
I'd like to be second to none to.
Under thought control. Is that the...
No, I don't recall that, but the and there's It's 318. Let me. Dorsey.
What's
The
case?
index gives the wrong page. This is something I've quoted a number of times to people.
What's the case name?
Kingsland v. Dorsey,
Okay.
and that was it was a dissent, and but anyway, this guy had been I think it was a disbarment case, and he used language, somebody else's language, and they were saying he was plagiarizing. But I should not like. Oh, yeah, I like this. I should suppose that so far as the law is concerned, one may as effectively father statements by adoption as by conception, and that sincerely subscribing to what another has written for him does not constitute legal deceit or ground for disbarment, impeachment, or other penalty. But I like that. You could father statements by adoption as well as by conception. And he was, the guy was accused of using other people's language, and I thought that was very interesting. Okay, I'm sorry it takes so long to locate that, but I did like it. It's a quote that I like very much.
Great.
As far as the law is concerned, one may as effectively father statements by adoption as by conception. And this is for me.
Well, no, I'll give you. I have an extra copy for you, but I wonder if you could sign this here. Just right along here someplace. And I made an extra copy so you can have it for your archives. So you can remember what you wrote.
Okay. This was 2 years ago, a year ago. Yeah. Yeah, that's what this is. The things I believe his command of the language was extraordinary.
Why don't you read that to us? I'll put it on film here.
What?
You quoted that there. That was terrific.
Yeah.
Is that the same quote?
Yes.
Okay, same quote, yeah.
I should suppose that, as far as the law is concerned, one may as effectively father statements by adoption as by conception, and that sincerely subscribing to what another has written for him does not constitute legal deceit or grounds for disbarment, impeachment, or other penalty.
That's heavy duty.
Very good.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, now, you want this?
I'll take